Hey everybody, this is IC109 Larry speaking to you live, or at least recorded live. I just finished watching Sundays in LA with Black Sam. This is 93.5 K Day. This was an interview between Ms. Corree, Renee, and Black Sam at the Marathon Burger location on Melrose. And during the interview, she mentioned some things that resonated with me. Ms. Corey Renee said that she was from the west side of LA, and that she grew up in a household where she was sheltered, and but Nipsey was her thug. Nipsey was her, was her dude. Now, I kind of want to echo that sentiment. Number one, when I grew up, as I was growing up in Los Angeles, I was pretty much sheltered, um, and I kind of lived on the west side. Um, at least the playground. My playground was the west side. We would all often go to the Beverly Center and to um, westward areas, just to play. The marina, the Beverly Center. Yeah. So anyway, I'm a West Side baby, kind of like Miss Corey Renee, and I was sheltered, okay, because my cousins were actual gang members, okay, but where I grew up, there was no gang activity. I grew up in a neutral area, neutral territory, so I didn't have the influence of gangs in my life. I had friends and I had family members who were members of gangs, but not me personally. So I'm the definition, I was and I still am the definition of a civilian. All right. However, there's a desire, there's a need in all of our lives for representation, because there were these hip hop artists oftentimes that I gravitated towards, and I appreciated their representation, or rather, I appreciated their voice. Even if their voice didn't speak to my experience per se, I still appreciated their voice. For instance, Tupac Shakur, all right? Tupac was loud, outspoken, and even though I wasn't living the thug life, as a young black man, he was vocal about aspects of our life and of our history that certainly included me, even if I didn't align with his lifestyle, right? There were still parts of his narrative and parts of his voice and what he spoke against. He spoke truth to power. And when speaking truth to power, there were things that he said that were applicable to me, all right? So Tupac Shakur, for example, was one of those men whose voice was important, because I guess I was one of the voiceless, in some regard. Then you had Chuck D of Public Enemy, Fight the Power. That was huge in '88 when Do the Right Thing was released. Spike Lee is another, okay? With his outspokenness and with his ability to make movies, and his movies were able to inspire and educate, you know I hadn't read the autobiography of Malcolm X, but I had watched Malcolm X the movie. And although they're not the same, if you never read the autobiography of Malcolm X and you only watch the movie, at least it gives you a pretty good idea about who Malcolm X was. Even if you don't get all of the details, it's still an excellent movie. Um, But these men had voices. These men in their lives, I was searching for representation, for leadership, for, you know, not so much a role model, but certainly a real model, someone who was keeping it real. And so Nipsey Hussle comes along, and although his narrative and his life, couldn't be more different from my life, I still gravitated toward him at least a little bit. I remember I caught wind of the Hustle in the House video at some point, and that video was cool at some point. I remember watching it and thinking to myself, wow, this really is where hip hop is going. Because in my mind, see, let me give you an example. You see, I was a DJ Quick fan, and very few times on record did DJ Quick actually refer to his gang affiliation. He didn't clearly say, Blood, Pyru, you know, Treetop. If you listen to his first album, you had to know, you had to be in that lifestyle in order to know what he was referring to, because instead of actually saying treetop, he laughed, ha ha. I think it was in Loked Out Hood, when he did that. And if you knew, I don't know, the syllables, if you knew, treetop has two syllables and the laugh, ha ha, then you could figure it out. But he was leaving clues, but he wasn't saying it, overtly, directly. But when Nipsey came along, excuse me, let me backtrack. And then there were other artists. Well, MC8, I think MC8 was pretty clear that he was a Crip. Trag New Park was his gang, and he put that out there. Um, or maybe he didn't. I don't know, because I wasn't listening to MC8 as much as I was listening to DJ Quick. But a lot of the gang references were not so direct and overt until Nipsey's era. You see, there's a shift in the rap whereby there were these men who were on the front lines, but we knew they were gangsters, but we didn't know their affiliations per se. And then with the shift with this other generation of rappers, leading the charge was Nipsey Hussle. We got some real models, and they were putting their neighborhoods on Front Street and calling out their sets. Nipsey primarily saying 6-0 Crip. All right. So when I saw that shift, I looked at the video and I thought, wow, this is interesting because this is popular music at the time. But at the same time, I looked at that and I said, that's dangerous. I just looked at it and I was like, I can only like this music so far. I can't like it fully. I can't embrace it. I can't run out and go, get the Nipsey Hussle gear and put on the I couldn't. No, 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 no. Because that would have been tantamount to gang banging. And I'm a civilian. I don't do that. So anyway, what I'm trying to say here is Nipsey was a figure, was a real model that people gravitated towards, even though he was embedded in gang life. Um, and so, just as Corree Renee says in the interview that Nipsey was her thug, like she was like, "Hey, I see Nipsey, and Nipsey's doing his thing, and somehow he's appealing, you know." And that's what it was for me too, at least early on, because I remember seeing that Hustle in the House video very early on. I remember seeing that interview with Nipsey when I think it was on dubcnn.com that I watched the interview. I was shocked. I remember being shocked because I was coming out of college at the time and I had been studying finance, business finance, when I saw the Nipsey Hussle video. And I was shocked that Nipsey Hussle was so smart, was so intelligent, because as I was coming out of college, I was about to graduate from college, I heard Nipsey Hussle repeat a principle, a financial principle that I was just learning. in college, in my last few years of college. Nipsey Hussle, this kid from the street, this gangbanger, this high school dropout, all of this, and yet he knew a financial principle that I was learning as a college student. When I heard Nipsey utter those words that he wanted assets over liabilities, I was dumbfounded. I was like, if he knows these principles already, like, what value is my education? What value? Why did I sit in class for these, years to get this education when he got it, when he already has it? And how did he get it? Just by reading some books and just being up on it? It was just a jaw drop moment, like, oh my gosh. But he had the knowledge, he knew what it was, and he was putting it into practice. It wasn't only a theory to him. See, as a student, it was just a theory to me. It was just an idea. Ah, yeah, okay, I hear it. Assets over liabilities. I got the idea. But in Nipsey, he was putting it into practice. He said, hey, man, I'm going to get this money, but I'm not going to trick it off on some liabilities. Yeah, it looks nice, but at the end of the day, my people need land. My people need something of value. Nipsey was way beyond his time in that aspect. His voice was very strong, and he became a voice, for the voiceless. He became, my voice in in some instances, and I didn't want to follow him. I didn't want to follow Nipsey because he was too dangerous. Sure, he had the acumen. Sure, he had the knowledge, but I didn't know that much about him. I had only seen the Hustle in the House video, and I heard him say assets over liabilities. Those were my first two experiences, impressions of Nipsey. After that, it was too gangster for me. That was it. I was done with it. It's too gangster. I'm not listening to it. Years later, my a good friend of mine from elementary school told me you should go and support Nipsey. And this was probably around 2010. Oh no, I remember it was absolutely 2010 when he was telling me you should go and support Nipsey. And I didn't want to do it because, again, I didn't feel comfortable going to Crenshaw and Slauson, even if it was to support the brand, and even if the community was changing because Nipsey was there, the presence, and things were happening. I didn't want to be there because of the reputation that it already had. Its reputation preceded it. I mean, when I was many years before that, when I was in high school, I actually drove. I distinctly remember driving to Crenshaw and Slauson to get my hair cut. I pulled into that lot. I went to the barber shop, and I had my hair cut. But doing that for me was, hey, I've got to get in, I've got to get out. You know, even back then, it was like, don't stick around. Just get into the hood, get your hair cut, get out of the hood. That's what it was for me. And so that was the impression that I had of all of the hood, of anywhere in the hood. Just get in and get out. Okay? You want some ice cream from Quick and Split? Just get in and get out. Okay? You want your hair done at the local barber shop? Just get in and get out. You know? Um, so so even when my buddy told me, hey, go there and support Nipsey, I was like, man, I can't just get in and get out with Nipsey. Well, the reason being, Nipsey's clothing was too expensive for me. That's the primary reason why I didn't go. I mean, if I had the money, I might have done the same thing. Just get in and get out. Whether it's, some ice cream from Quick and Split, whether it's a haircut, whatever, probably should have just supported him. But I didn't have the money. Nipsey stuff was expensive. In 2002, I remember looking at Pharrell Williams ice cream clothing line, and I wanted some ice cream gear to be cool and hip, you know? $200 for something, man, for a pair of jeans? I couldn't swing it. So Nipsey selling $50 t-shirts or whatever, I couldn't do it. Nope. So those are some reasons why I didn't support Nipsey. But my luck changed, and in 2018, I was earning more money than I ever earned in my life. I was traveling the globe. And so when I came back to Los Angeles, I made sure to buy something from the Marathon clothing store. Now, mind you, when I went there, I went in the morning. I was with my mom. 9 a.m. when the store opened, my mom and I hopped out, pulled up into the lot, hopped out the car. We went inside. I grabbed a few items, and then we were within 5 minutes in and out. Now, within that short period of time that we went in the store, Black Sam was there and he was walking out. So I saw him and I gave him a little "What's up, man?" I had seen him for the first time, in person there. Nipsey's father was there. Nipsey wasn't around. But as I was checking out and, paying for my stuff, I said, "Hey, man, let me shake your hand." You know, Dawit Askadam, Nipsey's father. My mom was there. She was looking around. She was like, What is the marathon? What does that mean?" And then one of the guys behind the counter explained it to my mom, and I was like, yeah, ma, that's what this is. All right, so those are some of the memories from the Marathon clothing store on Crenshaw and Slauson. I'm explaining this because it's important to understand that, like, it's important to understand what goes through the minds of people in Los Angeles, knowing what we know about the terrain, about the lay of the land, okay? And how families, you know, try to protect their children from certain elements. But you have a person like Nipsey who is so special that all of the fortifications that are constructed to keep those elements or keep any element that is similar to that element away, when those fortifications come down. See, Nipsey wasn't a Crip. Nipsey was, for all intents and purposes, Nipsey was that messianic spirit. Nipsey was Jesus in in a Crip hood. So he had to speak the lingo. He had to come through the community, and he spoke to the community. So, but his spirit was in alignment with a greater purpose, with a greater energy source, with a greater frequency. And so it didn't matter if he was navigating the Crip terrain. It was Nipsey who was destined to to shed light, on the community. And for those of us who embraced, who who's who felt his light, we came closer to him. And it didn't matter the presentation because we knew the truth. We could see, we could feel the authenticity, the genuineness, you know. So yeah, Nipsey, man. Nipsey was 108. 108, that highly sacred number in the universe, in the heavens and on earth. Nipsey rode the 108 bus, went to Watts to study, 1 block away from 108th Street. There he was at the Watts Center, at the Watts Tower Center, learning his craft. Man, I tell you, Nipsey, woo, this whole marathon, just as they said, marathon is a lifestyle brand. And so pick up, pick up the pace. run your laps, you know, eat some marathon burger food, get some marathon water in your life, put the marathon clothing on your back, okay? Um, what else? Listen to Nipsey's music, get inspired. Yeah, keep running, keep up. It's powerful, man. It's very powerful. And then you know, the last thing is there's so much more to Nipsey than just Los Angeles and the gang affiliation. So much more than that, because we have just a spirit, a pure spirit, who wanted more for himself. He and his brother said, this is not going to do. Whatever, where you put us in this lowly community where we don't have enough money and we can't, maneuver the way that we want to maneuver, this will not do for us. Because look at the history of the country from which, their bloodline traces back. That's royalty. Our Bible, okay? The Holy Bible, man. These books, the Holy Bible and this book comes from the Bible, the oldest Bible that can be found in Ethiopia and Eritrea. And the people in the Bible, Queen of Sheba, Makeda, who's in the Bible, she ruled over Nipsey's nation, Eritrea, as well as Ethiopia, parts of Saudi Arabia and modern day Yemen. Parts of all of these countries, especially Ethiopia and Eritrea, that's where Queen of Sheba ruled over. So when you think about Nipsey, you have to think about the Queen of Sheba, because she was a biblical figure. And for him to have a connection to that, and for him to have lived during our lifetime, and for him to have reached the heights of success that he did, it was supposed to happen. Nipsey is the one. Nipsey was the one, okay? Nipsey and Sam are the ones. These are the men who are leading the charge for this reconnection to who we are. Knowledge of self is key. We have to know far beyond what we are told in America. Oh, Nipsey was a Crip. Far beyond that, we have to know who Nipsey was. Nipsey was 108. We've got to know the history of Eritrea and Ethiopia. Beyond the wars and beyond the conflicts, go even further back to Aksum and Dimt, okay? DMT, Dimt. Look at the Sabaeans, Saba. There's a history here. The Bible is an African book. I'll leave it at that. Peace and blessings from IC 109. I'm out.